The first 300 WSM build here on Ultimate Reloader starts now. In this video, I'm going to talk about the WOOX Exactus stock, the Carbon 6 barrel, and the pristine Magnum short action that we'll be using for the build. We're going to walk through the build process, we're going to assemble the rifle, and of course, go to the range. This is going to be awesome. Hey guys, Gavin here from UltimateReloader.com. At the last SHOT Show, I was sitting talking to the guys at the LAPO booth and was looking at their new case offering, one of them, which is 300 WSM, and I thought, I'm gonna do a 300 WSM build. Well, fast forward to today, here we are. We've got a really incredible build lined up here. Before we get into the components and the specific plans, let me talk about 300 WSM. So in short, 300 WSM is going to approach 300 Win Mag performance, but in a short action. That's the simplest way that I can think to say it. If you want something more powerful than a 30-06 or a 308, but you don't want to go to a long action, 300 WSM is going to fit into this new Magnum short action kind of high performance category, like the 6.5 PRC, like some of the Sherman mags. And these are becoming really popular because people want to keep the weight of the rifle down, they want to keep the dimensions of the rifle down, and they want that Magnum performance, but they don't want to have to go to a long action to get that performance. So 300 WSM is SAMI certified. That means that there is a level of standardization and documentation for this cartridge that you're not going to get with non-SAMI'd cartridges. It was designed in 2001. It is a 30 caliber, obviously. 535 case rim, so that's the Magnum case rim. That's going to be the same for 300 Win Mag and 7 Rem Mag and 7 PRC and all of those. 63,817 PSI max, which is fairly typical for modern cartridges, and 2.860 inches cartridge overall length. Okay, so let's talk about the component that is at the heart of the build, which is the pristine short action Magnum. You're going to want to check out the other two rifle builds that we've done with pristine actions here on the channel. Our first build featured Pristine's standard 6-lug short action receiver. That was a 6GT in a lightweight form factor. You know what? That rifle shoots absolutely awesome. It is a real shooter every time we go to put this thing to the test. So you're going to want to check out that full build. Then we did a pristine long action. I swapped it over to a 308 bolt face, and we did a 280 AI per your request. And you know what? That was a great request because 280 AI in my book is a real winner. We used a WOOX Superleggera stock for that one. That build turned out absolutely amazing. So unlike the 6-lug standard short action from Pristine, the Pristine short action Magnum is actually a 2-lug design. So this is going to be available either in the 540 bolt face or in the 470 bolt face. So you can do either a 308 case rim cartridge or a Magnum cartridge, and I think one of the reasons they offer both is so that if you do want to have one receiver and run, something like a 6.5 Creedmoor and a 300 WSM or a 6.5 PRC in the same basic components, you can actually do that and swap back and forth. Some people are going to prefer a 2-lug over a 6-lug. It's really a personal preference. So I think for Pristine to have this specific action in their lineup makes a lot of sense. So it is 2-lug. It's available in left or right hand configurations, which I know a lot of you lefties are going to be rejoicing over. The finish is either nitride, which is going to be black, or polished, which is the polished stainless, which we have here. It's got a 90-degree bolt lift, dual ejectors, it's floating bolt head. Like I mentioned, 470 and 540 bolt faces for Magnum and 308 respectively. The MSRP is going to range from $12.99 to $13.79 as of the recording of this video. Okay, so the Pristine is going to sit in the WOOX Exactus stock. I'm really excited about this stock because it's just a really super clean, straightforward design. The WOOX stocks are beautiful. This stock is hybrid construction. It's got an aluminum chassis core, and it's got these walnut components for the buttstock and for the forend. I absolutely love the look. We're going to pair this with the Hawkins Precision M5 DBM bottom metal. I haven't even set that in there. That fits real nice. We've got an accurate mag. This is the 300 WSM mag, appropriately enough. And so cartridges should have no problem fitting in there. I already did a test fit of the pristine receiver in the stock. It fits real nicely. You can see right here where the recoil lug is going to line up. Bolt handle is nice and centered in the bolt handle notch. Looks like there's good room for everything. Sits flush and stable in the Exactus. The Exactus has an adjustable cheek riser. That's always a nice feature. It's got QD here on the back with a sling attachment point. It's got a rear Picatinny rail section here for if you want to use a rear monopod or something like that. I'm going to put a cover on this, possibly the bag rider from the Furiosa Ultra that I have. I'll experiment with that a little bit. M-LOK slots up here under the forend. This is a key feature for me because I am thinking to put an ARCA rail section here so that we can use a lot of the popular bipods here at Ultimate Reloader. It's got this kind of checkering textured panel features here on the forend and around the grip. Kind of a near vertical grip orientation. And so overall the ergos of this feels a little bit short here, but it does come with these length of pull spacers. I typically prefer a longer length of pull, around 14 inches or so. So I will probably put all of the spacers in. Okay, so in terms of colors, what we see here is the walnut finish, which is my favorite. But Exactus is also available with Tigerwood, which has kind of a striped pattern on it, as you might expect, Midnight Gray, and FDE as well. For the trigger, I decided to go with the Bix'n Andy Tac Sport X. This trigger was recently featured in our Bix'n Andy sort of trigger shootout. We put a whole bunch of these Bix'n Andy triggers from Bullet Central on the TriggerScan TS11 and did a bunch of testing on these. They feature a ball trigger design, which is patented, very unique, and good level of adjustability on this one. It goes down to 0.62 pounds, right? So it's going to be somewhere in that 7 to 9 ounce range on the low end, and you can definitely crank it up to much higher pull weights as appropriate. When we look at the TriggerScan results, we've got a nice, clean trigger pull. You can see here the smoothness of the lines represents the fact that there's no grit, and when I have used this trigger in the past, I've always been impressed with how distinctly it breaks. I always know when the gun is going to go off, and that is one of the most important things to me with regard to a trigger. So for a barrel blank for this build, I'm really excited about this. This is a carbon 6 barrel blank. We've got 22 inches finished length for this, 1.2 inch shank, 1-in-9 twist. These carbon 6 barrels have shot really, really well in everything that we've tried them in. The 6GT, the 280 AI, they both shot absolutely amazingly. And I think at 22 inches finished length, this rifle will be perfect for use with the suppressor. In terms of special tooling for 300 WSM, we've got a Manson Precision 300 WSM semi-spec reamer. We also have go and no-go gauges that we'll use during the chambering process on the rifle, and also, of course, for our final headspace check when we torque down the barrel outside the lathe. In terms of components, I've got a bunch of these 300 WSM cases from Lapua, and if you've been watching the channel, I've been getting really, really good results with Burger bullets, and so has F-Class John. These 197mm bullets here, he just got absolutely fantastic results with using the 7 PRCW, which is actually very similar to the 300 WSM, but of course it's a 7mm. So I'm going to look in our bullet library, we've got them up at the other shop, to see what Burger bullets I might be able to pair with this rifle and the 300 WSM cases to see what kind of loads we're going to be able to put together. So before I go to the lathe, one of the things that I'm now doing for every rifle build I do, regardless of whether it's for a customer or a project like this for the channel, is I go through a complete planning process. So I've got the tenon print from Pristine for short action Magnum. I have a reference tenon print that I generated from one of the previous builds with some updated specs. I like to print out the SAMI diagram for the cartridge in question, and then I have, I'll call this software, that will take in values from the tenon print and values from the SAMI diagram and put together some machining instructions for me that are very helpful by the lathe. And the reason that I did this was I used to just generate sort of a table of values that were the key dimensions for the build, and during a build I looked at the wrong dimension. Fortunately, the dimension was longer than it was shorter, and I was able to, cut the tenon down to length or whatever it was. It wasn't a problem, but it really made me think, for each process and each step, I want to have only the pertinent information at my fingertips, and in that way I don't have to do as much mental arithmetic. Everything's there ready to go, and I'm not going to make that error, grabbing the wrong value and using it. And then finally, I have a chambering checklist. So this is just for if I get interrupted in the shop, I have to leave and come back, or I'm deep into a thought process, I can make sure that I'm going in order and that I'm capturing all of the different activities that I need to perform. And when I loosen the chuck and remove the barrel from the lathe, I'm not going to say, oh, I forgot to smooth the chamber entrance, or cut the recessed crown feature and chamfer the lands or whatever. So these kinds of planning documents in the end save me time. I did measure the action, I got my key dimensions, and I've got my game plan in hand. So I'm ready to go to the lathe. Okay, so here we are with the finished rifle. This thing turned out awesome. And I decided to use the PM1440 HVT2 variable speed 1440 lathe. This is an absolutely outstanding piece of equipment. But one of the first things that I noticed was with a 22-inch finished barrel blank, I wasn't quite long enough to get all the way through the chuck and out through the outboard spider. So what I did was I cut the barrel to length. I ended up threading the muzzle 5/8 24 first, and then installing a barrel extension, which is just a length of barrel that has a female 5/8 24 on one end and a male 5/8 24 on the other end. When you screw it together and you tighten it, it's very rigid, and that means that we can clamp onto the barrel extension out with the spider and then blow compressed air through the barrel when needed. And if we have pressure flush, we can use that male 5/8 24 hanging out the side of the lathe to connect our pressurized oil to. Okay, standard 5/8 24 threading, cutting things to length, turning the tenon down to just under 5/8 of an inch, like 1/1000th less. Cutting the thread reliefs, threading the tenon, facing the end, cutting our recessed crown, flat crown, and good to go there. Checked everything with my thread micrometers to make sure we were right on our pitch diameter, installed the barrel extension, flipped it around, and now we're ready to do the breech end work, which is really where the majority of the work is. Fortunate for me, Pristine publishes a nice tenon print and specifics for the action. I measured the action just to make sure I knew exactly what my dimensions needed to be. This is going to be a fairly traditional 1 1/16 by 20 threads per inch straight threaded tenon, and then we've got a counter bore that's 715 thousandths in diameter and 90 thousandths deep. So I double checked all of the math. I input my parameters from the SAMI print and the tenon print into my software, and then calculated a step-by-step approach to getting things done on the lathe. And this again is my traditional process, where we're going to start with a rough dial-in. We're going to pre-drill the bulk of the chamber material out from that area with a spotter drill and then a drill bit, and then to go in with an extended reach ability into that throat area and dial the barrel into 1/10,000th of an inch or less to make sure that that throat area is in complete alignment. None of this and none of this going on in that area. perfectly dead true, perfectly straight coaxial with the spindle of the lathe. Once that's dialed in, we go in with the boring bar and bore that pre-drilled area true so that we have a nice landing surface for the reamer. And at that point, I took a chucking reamer and reamed off the lands for the neck area so that we don't have deflection and chatter when the reamer goes in. Then it's time to turn the tenon, just like on the muzzle end, turning it down to diameter, cutting the shoulder perfectly true, cutting our thread reliefs, and then cutting the counterbore. And I just followed the dimensions, which I had confirmed on the tenon print, 715 in diameter, 90 depth. With the counterbore in place, it's then time to thread the tenon. Threads turned out really nice on this. I used a TPI specific insert for the threading tool, turned it down, got it to just the right pitch diameter, and then screwed on the action. When we screw on the action, we're really checking two things. We're going to double check to make sure that we like the interface of the threads, but then also when we drop the bolt handle, we're confirming that we have clearance for the bolt nose in the counterbore, right? With the action tightened against the shoulder so that when we're making our headspace checks, we know that we're not stopping on anything except the go gauge and the chamber that we're cutting. Okay, so at this point, we are ready to cut the chamber. I'm using, in this case, a rigid reamer holder. This is a Morse Taper 3 generic blank that I had machined, just like what Bruce Tom showed me in the chambering rifle barrels video that we filmed at his personal shop. You're gonna wanna check out that video. He's a total master at the craft. I like the rigid reamer holders because nothing is gonna give you better alignment. These are machined in place with the lathe leveled. They're drilled out and then single point bored to be in perfect alignment. Your tailstock could be 10 thou high, doesn't matter. This is going to be perfectly collinear with the spindle of the lathe. And then when you tighten those set screws, the reamer is held so secure that you can literally hear the difference. If you've been using floating reamer holders and you switch to a rigid reamer holder like this, you will literally hear the difference. And I've had very, very infrequently and very minor issues with chatter compared to using floating reamer holders. Cut the bulk of the chamber. I've got a special ring that I've machined and ground to a specific length that I can use with a depth micrometer and the go gauge to gauge exactly where I need to be with my chamber depth. So I cut to basically final cut depth minus 10, 15 thousandths, take a check, see where I'm at, and because I'm using a fixed saddle position and a tailstock DRO, the tailstock coming up against the saddle, I know I have very repeatable relative depth dimensions and measurements that I'm dealing with. So I cut to depth, I screwed on the action and checked it on the lathe with the go and the no go gauge, looking good. At this point, it's time to chamfer the entrance to the chamber, dress things up, and that's basically it. Removed the barrel from the lathe and proceeded to put the rest of the rifle together. Using the barrel vise, this is a 1.2 inch shank with the appropriate bushings and some drywall tape, tightening the action down to 75 foot-pounds and then doing another headspace check. Everything is perfect at this point. Now I can install that Tac Sport X trigger from Bix'n Andy. Really, really nice trigger, and test fit the barreled action in this Wokes Exactus stock, and everything fit perfectly. Didn't have to do anything with the barrel channel. We've got plenty of clearance there. Everything lined up really, really nice. At this point, the rifle is basically done. Couple other finishing touches. I 3D printed a cover for the buttstock Picatinny section because I knew I was going to be using a rear bag most of the time and didn't need the Picatinny for any kind of rear monopod or anything like that. I put an Arca rail on the fore end. That was really easy because there's M-lock on the bottom of the fore end. That allows us to use our bag rider when we're shooting off of the bench rest, and then also a bipod like you see here when we're shooting prone. I decided to go suppressed this time. So this is the Silencer Co. Hybrid 46, and I've got a Coltac cover on that. I just decided, basically to me, this is a hunting rifle. This is going to be a compact Magnum. It's going to be capable of taking down elk and any kind of game around that size, like black bear, on down to deer, and then also it can kind of double as a long-range rifle. 300 WSM packs plenty of punch. I'll just say that much right now. Before I went shooting, I did some adjustments to the feed lips here. This is a 300 WSM accurate mag, right? Fits really good with the Hawkins Precision M5 DBM bottom metal. That's just my absolute favorite. Fit perfectly in the Wooks Exactus. Action screws were correct that came with the Hawkins Precision bottom metal. You know, this is now a package that's complete minus optics. So I decided to use my Leupold Mark V HD 5-25 by 56. This is one of my absolute favorites. I love the way that the turrets work. Very easy to re-zero. It's got the rev counter built in. Really, really high quality glass. Turned out the rings that I had, height was correct. I've got a bit of objective to barrel clearance there. So really at this point, the rifle is complete. I absolutely could not wait to break it in to see how this rifle was gonna do. So I went through a variety of different loads. Again, we're using Lapua brass. I started with Sierra 155 SMK bullets. I experimented with a couple different bullet alternatives, including Hornady 178 AMAX, and then these are Hornady 208 ELDM. And these shot really well. A couple groups here. We've got 5 shots that went into 0.488 inches. That's 5 shots at 100 yards. And then what happened here was the suppressor came loose. Not only the suppressor to the barrel, but the cap came loose. And you can see how the second group that I shot there opened up. So just a reminder to make sure to tighten your suppressor down really tight and to make sure all of the components are tight, because if your suppressor is flapping around, that's going to definitely open up your groups. So we had an average velocity of 2701.4, an SD of 11.3, and an extreme spread of 32.2 feet per second. Now, we decided to shoot at 706 yards from the ridgeline. I'll show you what happened there.
Is that possible? I shot it off of the post. Oh, that's funny.
Okay, so the first shot, I'm not sure exactly where it went. It was close. The second shot hit the T-post right below the target. So obviously my windages were good, but as you saw, the target basically got split in half, the T-post that is, and the target fell to the ground, which was unfortunate because that's quite a hike. I'm gonna have to go out there and remedy that situation. So, needless to say, long-range shooting, we're gonna be doing more of that and follow up there because I wasn't satisfied with that range trip. But overall, I really like the way that the rifle shoots. The suppressor and 300 WSM and a 22-inch barrel, I think, is a great combination. It was fun to load. The ammo, it looks like, you know, we're not even really pushing the performance threshold here. But I would say the biggest challenge that I had was definitely feeding. I had to tweak the mag lips a few different times to get the right angle. What I noticed initially was that the rounds were going in and just kind of jamming. And if I took a pick and lifted on the front of the bullet, it would tip the entire cartridge and then it would feed. And that's why I opened up the front of the feed lips so that it would kind of elevate the front portion of the cartridge just a little bit, and that enabled it to feed. And so there's a little bit of trade-offs. If it dips in the back too much, then the bolt's going to skip across the top. So you just have to experiment a little bit. I would like to try a different 300 WSM mag. I did not have one on hand, different ICS pattern mag for that specific cartridge. But no problem, you know, with a short action. It is a little bit of a limitation, the design of the cartridge. It's not like your PRCs. The bullet is shoved down into the case fairly far. And so, you know, your bullet choice and your seating depth and all of those factors are going to have to kind of accommodate that 2.860, I think, max cartridge overall length. Yes, 2.860, right from the SAMI diagram. But a great performer nonetheless, and a real powerhouse. So would I take this rifle hunting for elk or deer or anything like that? Absolutely. I think this would be an outstanding package. And I love the look of the Exactus. I think this thing is just the walnut with the anodized aluminum. Just the look is absolutely awesome. So in the end, the build went really smoothly, and we've got a super nice rifle here. What I'd like to know is, what do you think about 300 WSM, and what do you think about the WUK's Exactus and the pristine short action, right? Some interesting build components here, definitely a real looker, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Drop a comment and we'll start a discussion down there in the comments section. That concludes this video, and that means it's time to wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're watching Ultimate Reloader on TV and want to take advantage of free resources, exclusives, and hot deals, just hold your camera phone up to the QR code, tap on the link, fill out the information, boom, you're getting Ultimate Reloader emails. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, where we've got unrestricted content, and Instagram. Make sure to follow us on all those channels. Ultimate Reloader also has a commercial solutions division serving law enforcement, the military, and the gun industry. We have some unique capabilities, including a comprehensive suite of recoil testing and evaluation capabilities, trigger profiling, and more. Thanks again for watching.